Hi, Kelly Swingler here, Rulebreaker at Chrysalis Consulting. And I wanted to, I suppose, tell you a little bit of a story and a little bit of a miracle this week that got me thinking again about kind of how we are best able to implement change within our businesses, within our lives, and pretty much anything that we do. So a little bit of a miracle happened in addition to a Tesla going around the world at the moment, or around the solar system at the minute. I wasn't able to do that, but we had a mini miracle happen in our house. So my partner and I have been together for just over 3 years. I have twin sons who are 17, and he's got a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old. And the 14-year-old moved in with us a few weeks ago. Now, my two, ever since I can remember really since they first started eating, will pretty much eat anything with the exception of raw tomatoes and aubergine. My stepsons, however, very, very picky, fussy eaters. Drives me insane sometimes, but over the years we've learnt to kind of modify and sometimes cook what feels like a million dishes for people, but they are quite picky eaters. And my eldest stepson, as I said, has been with us now for a few weeks. And earlier this week, I was making myself and my other half a Nutribullet juice for breakfast. And he asked if he could try some. So he had some and wasn't, was kind of, I'm not quite sure, but kind of took a mouthful and then wasn't sure. That's kind of me done. But he kept asking questions about it, and as I took him to school, I drove across the other side of town to take him to school that morning, and he was asking about kind of what was in it, whether it was good for you, kind of the benefits of being able to drink it and the difference that it made. So I told him all of that. He then asked if it would give him a 6-pack, and I told him no, he'd need quite a bit more work to be able to put that forward, but he was quite interested in it. And he got home that night and we were talking about it. I said, I'm going to kind of pre-make one for the morning. Actually, could you make me one as well? And he stood with me watching what was going into it. And he hates individually, apart from kind of the apple and the pear that I put in, individually, he hates all of the individual ingredients that are in it. But he then took a bit more. He then had some for breakfast in the morning, and before football then that night, came back to the house with a friend and was talking his friend through the benefits of having one. He made himself and his friend one, and really kind of learnt how to make this by doing it himself and talking to his friend about it. And he's talking about all of the benefits and how much energy it gave him and how it'd be able to kind of give him a bit more energy for football, particularly in the cold, and all these different bits and pieces. And it really just made me think about the message that certainly we work with, the work that we do with clients, in that we have to engage people, we have to bring them along on that journey with us, we have to get them interested. Now, if I'd have sat him down on Monday morning and told him that he absolutely had to have one of these juices and talked about all of the benefits to him, he'd have probably switched off straight away, wouldn't have been interested one little bit. But the fact that he engaged himself in the process, he started to ask the questions, he started to understand the benefits, he started to understand the difference in it, and then started to try it for himself. So that experiential part of implementing that change was really good for him. And he was really he doesn't normally have breakfast, he normally just has a cup of tea, and every day this week he's can I have a juice for breakfast? And he's made that change himself, he's made that shift, and he's really engaged. Have we got enough ingredients, could you put anything else in? He's been so excited with it, and it's a real, what I would class to be a really small shift. But for him, and the fact that he has been such a picky eater for most of his 14, nearly 15 years on the planet, he's been really picky. But he's made a decision, he's done something different, and he's taken some positive steps forward to be able to improve his diet, improve his health, improve his well-being. And he's also been saying this week, actually, that he's sleeping much better. Now, I don't necessarily know that that's anything to do with the juice, but in his eyes it is. And that's that pull factor, that kind of anchor point that makes him want to keep on doing it. So from a business perspective, if we can get people to engage in the process, sometimes on their own terms, because we know from an emotional perspective, if people don't understand the kind of what's in it for me factor, that's where they can be really slow in the change, or they start to deny the changes. They don't want to make the changes as they go through. But if they can feel that they're doing it on their own terms, and if they can feel the benefits for themselves, and if they can ask the right questions and start to then talk to other people about those changes and the difference that it will make for them, that's where we start to see real sustainable change. That's where we start to have our people, our people at any level of the business are really the ones that will ensure that change is either successful or it's a failure. Because if we can't get them on board with it, it's just not going to happen. So the more that we can allow them to kind of inquire, to be inquisitive, to start to experiment with things for themselves, to start to implement things on their own terms, that's where we start to see successful change. And allowing that inquisitiveness and supporting it, and sometimes not pushing it. I have previously gone on about his diet and what he needs to do to change it, and actually how it's not particularly healthy. Since he's been living with us, actually, I haven't done that. I've asked questions. I've asked him what he wants with the shopping, but through his own want and his own wish, and by observing actually kind of what my sons are eating and what myself and my partner are eating, that's where he has become much more inquisitive. And I think sometimes if we can allow the space for our people to do that within business, rather than just chucking a change at them and saying, this is what you've got to do, you have to start doing it over this period. If we can start to implement changes slowly, and we can encourage our people to test it out and give us some feedback and learn for themselves and really start to drive that forward, that's where we start to get change. That's where we start to drive change. That's where we start to have successful change. That's where we create sustainable change. And so I think if we can encourage ourselves as leaders to not always rush things. Let's take our time. Let's experiment a little bit. Let's test it in some different areas. Let's really find out what it is that our people want. Because again, sometimes too much at the top table, the parents in the organisation, we are saying that this change needs to happen, and we're saying why it needs to happen, and we forget that emotional point. We don't pay enough attention to what's going on for our people. We don't look at why they would want to change. We don't drive that forwards enough. And I think if we can start to have more of that time, allow our people to experiment, that's where we start to get the successes. So that's a quick one from me today. Probably another ramble. I will get used to talking directly to my laptop at some point, I'm sure. But yeah, so I suppose, that's it for today. How a Nutribullet can help us more effectively implement change in our lives, in our business, in everything that we do, and allow us really to start doing things differently. So I'll leave it there for now. Hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye bye.